Hello everyone, in this tutorial I'll show you how you can use dynamic zoom in DaVinci Resolve to add some motion in your images or any static image. Let's go ahead and see how we can do that in DaVinci Resolve. Hello guys, and welcome to our tutorial. So basically what we're going to do is learn how to do something like this. So let's say I have a clip and I'll just play this example so you can see how it's just zooming out like that. And I have another example here where I have this book, or let's use this one, where I have these captions, and then see how these captions is just moving like that. So let's learn how we can do this. So I'll go over to my timeline. By the way, I'm actually using a vertical project. If I click the gear icon, I'm using a vertical resolution. It doesn't really matter which resolution that is. So bring in your image. So I have a set of these images. I'll just drag any of these ones and I'll just drop this image right here. So now we have an image. If I put this on the timeline and just press play, we are just seeing the moleskin sketch, and that's it. That's all we have right now. So how do we improve this? So we've dragged our clip. So let's select the clip by clicking on it, and make sure your inspector is open. That's the gear icon. If it's not open, you won't see this. By the way, I'll just go ahead and reset my UI layout so we are all on the same page, so you can just see how that looks like. And I'll get rid of the media pool because I don't need the media pool right now. Either way, this is where we are. I'll just drag the playhead back to this guy. That's where we are. This playhead right here. And for some reason, the media pool doesn't want to close. I'll just do this instead. All right. So we want to add some dynamic zoom to this. And let's open up the inspector. So scroll down to where you see dynamic zoom and click on that. So what that's going to do is, if I actually play it right now, you can actually see it's zooming out, right? So we first have the object here where it's zoomed in, but here, if by the time it moves, it's just zooming out dynamically on its own. What we can do is to swap this. So it's going to be like out to in now. So if I play this, it's going to start from a like zoomed out, and then it's going to be zooming in. In essence, this is how you can add dynamic zoom to your videos. If you like this, you can just quit the video and just drag in another clip if you want, and repeat the same process. So here we have another clip, and I'll just turn on dynamic zoom, and then boom, just like that, you have dynamic zoom. But this movement doesn't feel sort of natural like that. It's not really a natural movement, and you don't really want something like that. So how do we customize this? Because by default, it's pulling out, it's zooming backwards. So how do we customize this? Well, let's go ahead and set this back to the start position. So if you're on your timeline, click this drop down arrow, and then you will see dynamic zoom. And when dynamics opens up, you'd actually see a red box and a green box. So if we want a slow push in, we want to make the red box slightly smaller than the green box. So we'll just drag this red box, drag it here to the center, and I can set the focus point on this button, and I'll just drag this green box around here. Let's play it and see what happens. Now you can see we actually zooming in to that button, right? So that's what's happening there. So you can see by just opening up this option, we're opening up a window to customize this. Let's try using the green box this around. I'll drag the green box towards the hand, slightly push the red box here, and then let's play that and see what that happens. So it's going to start from the focus point, and the focus point is this hand here. If I push it towards these monitors, so if I drag this and I push it towards these monitors like that, just make that slightly big a bit, and I should start this. So it's going to start focusing from the monitors, and this arrow indicates that it's going to be pushing out. So we're going to start zoomed in, and we're going to be pushing outwards of that zoom. So that's what's happening over there. So if I play this, we can actually see what's happening. Now, there are other ways to customize the movement. If I click on this object and go to dynamic zoom, we can see it's on linear, which is not really how things move in real life. I'll just try ease in and out, and let's try that movement now. So it's going to ease in and then ease out slowly towards the end. So it's going to start moving slowly, just like your car is moving, and then towards the ending, it's going to slow out. So that's why we have that easing in and out, which actually helps your animation. Here we can start ease out. So it's going to ease out of that motion, but then quickly so it's easing out. And then here towards the end, we can see it's a bit faster. Here it's easing in, moving a bit faster, and then slowly easing out. So that's what the dynamic zoom does. Again, if you're satisfied with that motion, you could actually do that. But let's move on to a professional control. And for professional control, we're going to use manual keying, which is very interesting. So the thing is, we want to keep movements incredibly slow. So a 5-second clip should only zoom about, or pan about 5%. If you notice that movement immediately, it's actually too fast. So let's go ahead and do this. So let's drag another clip. Let's drag this one with the climax thingy here. And let's click on this. So this time around, make sure we are on transform. So I'll set this back to transform. And this is the transform. So what I'm going to do is to set my start point, right? So this is the beginning of the clip. So I'm going to move my start point here. So I'll zoom into, let's say, so I'll just go over here where it says zoom. I'll zoom into about 1.16, like so. So 1.17, like so. So I've zoomed in here. And what I'm going to do is to activate the keyframes, which is this button here. I'll just click on that button. So now with this little gray diamond keyframe, next to the zoom icon, this is going to turn orange, which means I've locked in the start position. So now I'm going to move the playhead to the end of the clip here. This is my end clip. And what I'm going to actually do is to change the zoom to, let's say, I'm starting from a low number. So I'll set that to a slightly higher number, say like that. So let's go back and play this and see what happens here. So if I play this, so you can see we're actually having a much more natural, slowed down movement like so. So what I just did as a repeat is I started this keyframe here. And if we click this arrow, it's going to show us the start and the end keyframes. So I started zoomed in, and then now I've actually zoomed out of this. And as you can see here, like that. Now, this is actually super great. Now, we don't need to click the diamond again for the second move. We could even do a lot of things like slightly pan it to the right a bit here at this point. And then once it's at the ending, we're going to pan it, the X position, slightly back to the center. And this is going to create something like when it's playing, it's zooming in, and it's going to be like moving slightly that direction and then stopping right there like that. And I didn't actually activate that. So what we're going to do when we start here, once we're at this point, let's drag the X position slightly to the right and set a keyframe here. So we've activated it, and towards the end, like so, we're going to move that position back to center this object. And you can see the keyframes are active here. And what I'll do is go back to the start. So if I play this, we see it zooming in and it's slightly moving towards the left, like so, and it's going back to settle. Now, what we can actually do from here is to also, we could right click on this and set this to ease in as well, to ease in the animation. There are better ways to do this in the Fusion page, but I don't want to use Fusion right now because it might be too much for this video. So yeah, there's no Fusion. Right. So, and because I have these sketches on paper, I want to make it feel smooth, like a digital camera is actually zooming on this. So how do we do that? Well, this is where we actually add an effect. So at the top of Resolve here, let's go over to effects and click effects. So now that we have effects, we can scroll to the open FX menu, or we can search for camera shake. So let's just go over here and go to effects, film FX emulation under Resolve effects. So let's drag camera shake and then place that on the object. So if I go over here and then go back to the inspector and click on effects, we can see we have a camera shake effect. And let's see how that looks like. So let's play this. And it's super jaggy and wobbly. We don't want it to be too jaggy and too wobbly. So what we're going to do is to just tone the movement down, just to make it, smooth, because it's kind of too shaky. But if you like it kind of like wonky and wobbly like that, that's super fine. You can always do that one. And we can also do things like add scan lines just to make it more like a capital ray tube, but that's something for another day. So with this, let's go ahead and go down to the motion scale. I'll just turn this down so it's like on 1. I'll set this like 0.2 or something like that. So that's it. So it's on 0.2. Let's see how that looks like. It's still shaky. So what we're going to do is to change the speed as well. So for the scale speed, I'll dial this down to about 0.2 just to give that natural wobbly camera movement. So you can actually see it's actually moving and it's kind of like floaty and interesting. This is a very good setting. And what we're actually going to do is drag the motion blur a little bit. Now, what we can also do as an additional fun is to actually animate the keyframes. So for the motion scale, I'll start here, but by the time it gets to the ending, I'm going to push this to about 0.3. And I'll do the same thing here. So it's starting here, and by the time it gets to the ending for the speed, I'll just bump this down to about 0.3, like so. So we're going to start smooth like that. And then towards the end, it's going to move slightly faster. And that's it. That's super quick. You can right click on this. You can right click on this keyframe and just ease in like that, like so. I think for this one didn't work because we didn't activate it at the beginning. So I'll go back here, activate it here. And by the time it gets there, we'll set this to say, just dial it down a bit because it's already moving fast. And we'll just play this. And you can see how that is just wobbly and jagged out there. It's really ugly. I don't like that. So I'll just undo the changes till we have something quite natural like that. So that's the way. That's how you can create dynamic zoom. We've seen different ways to do it. You know, this one is the cheapest method. Everyone's going to know you're using that one. Everyone's going to know you added dynamic zoom here. If I just play this, you can see dynamic zoom. And I'll also show you the third method. But like I said, I don't want to be using the Fusion page. We might do that in another lesson. But thanks for watching, guys. That's how you can create dynamic zoom to add more story to your projects in case you're using DaVinci Resolve. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this tutorial, please leave a thumbs up, leave a like, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. You can see how you can easily use this to tell a story. And let's go ahead and actually do a quick demo on that one here. So I'll just go 3, 2, 1. Auto editing is super important, especially when you're using AI. With AI, you can do things like change your color grading automatically or with the click of a button. Finally, it will build your resolution, climax, conflict, and your hook. Goodbye, and thank you for watching.